Welcome to Level Up Your Genealogy 1, which is an intermediate genealogy class, and I'm going to show you ways to move beyond auto-generated hints that you would often find on the big three genealogy websites like MyHeritage, Ancestry, and FamilySearch. These are the three sections we're going to go through during this class. First, we're going to talk a little bit about how to use the FamilySearch Catalog. That is where you can truly see what FamilySearch has, because it's a lot better to do intentional searching in collections than to just search wide open on FamilySearch. Then we will talk about techniques that you can use for working with Ancestry DNA, how to get started at a very beginner level with that. Then we're going to talk about some other repositories that you can start using beyond the big three genealogy websites. So by now you are familiar with the big three genealogy websites. So MyHeritage, Ancestry, and FamilySearch, and they all give you record suggestions, hints for records that might relate to your family. And all that is doing is looking at trees, seeing what's attached, and then giving you those records and asking you if you want to apply them to yours. So it's not verifying that something is correct. It's not telling you it's definitely the right record. It's just saying, hey, this is over here in this tree. Maybe you want to put it in yours too. So it's very important to understand that. So that's why we're going to do some intentional searching. We're not going to just wait for records to come to us in hint form, because that is a sure way to derail your family tree. We're going to talk specifically about the FamilySearch unindexed images. They have a lot of records that are just the image, and you would look at them like you are reading a book. They are not searchable by name. They have not been indexed. You're just looking at the images. So a lot of those are being added to full text search, which we'll talk about in a bit, but you will still need to learn how to do this. If you have not used FamilySearch before, it's entirely free. It is run by the LDS Church out of Salt Lake City, but they give free access to everyone regardless of religion. All you need is a free username and password to use their site. So let's dig into it. FamilySearch has the most records out of any repository in the world. These are the 2025 stats that they have released. So they have 66.24 billion searchable names. That means those are the names that you can just go out to their general search page, search on a name, and there are 66.24 billion people that have records that pertain to their name. 1.66 billion searchable names in their family tree. Now they have one collaborative family tree. Everyone works on the same family tree, and that's how many people they currently have in it. So they also have 540,000 digitized books and records from 200 countries. Now, what we're going to focus on are the 5 billion plus unindexed digital images, because the other websites, they digitize something or acquire something and get the whole collection like nice and tidy, all fully indexed, ready to go, and then release it to you. FamilySearch focuses on speed of getting those records to you. They would rather release them like one page at a time so that you have access to them rather than giving you a complete package of records. So that's why so many of these records are unindexed. They're available, but you need to learn how to find them. When using FamilySearch, I recommend that you do not use the general search. You should do targeted intentional searching instead within the record sets that you're looking for. Now on Ancestry, you can search pretty much wide open just on a name and then easily broaden or narrow your search results, and they give them to you in a very good like ranked order of most relevant to least relevant based on your search parameters. FamilySearch, a lot of times their general search feels like it's just throwing confetti results, that they are not really ranked by relevance. So this is a much less frustrating way to search. Just from the general family search page, you can click on the search menu and go to catalog. And it's going to give you access to all of the different collections that they have. It's just like you're back before the internet and you go to a library and you look in the card catalog. Same thing here. So you can just go to Family Search and you're going to click on Catalog. About 99% of the time, you will be searching by place. That will be what you're looking for in your records. But they do have these other ways to search too. You can search by surname. Let's say you are trying to find all of the McFarlands, like a whole McFarland collection is not tied to place, it's tied to a surname. You can search on that. You can look for specific titles or authors or subjects or keywords. Like maybe you're looking for something that's not place specific, but is about like Pennsylvania Quakers, or maybe you're looking for collections about French Canadian fur traders. You have the ability to search for that, but you will nearly always be using place. I'm going to start by showing you how to look for locations in the US, but you would use the same tactic as I'm going to show you for records in other countries. And I'll talk a little bit about that after I go through this section. So I'm going to show you some examples of what you might find. Obviously, US records will be fewer and start later as you move west. Like you might find birth records at the town level in Massachusetts from like 1770, whereas you might not find any birth records in Nevada until like 1890. You just don't know. Everything will vary by time and place. And I'm going to start by showing you vital records because we always want to find birth, marriage, and death records for our people and get a complete set out of that. I'm going to use an example in Minnesota, but this would apply exactly the same way to other states because state level records, vital records, started usually at the beginning of the 1900s for most states. That's when the requirement began. Prior to that, you will find a lot of those records at the county level, but not always. Again, it will vary by time and place. For Minnesota, for example, here, death records weren't required at the state level until 1904, but they did start at the county level in a lot of counties 20, 40, or even 50 years earlier than that. So you need to learn how to use the Family Search Catalog. That'll be your best bet for finding those records. So from a lot of client research, I know that LeSueur County in Minnesota is a good example of how to use the Family Search Catalog and what you can find there. In US-based research, I always recommend that you start at the county level first in your place search in the catalog, because that is going to give you all of the courthouse records. So that'll show up for all of the legal records that you're looking for, and that's where these vital records would apply to. But if you're not finding what you're looking for there, then I would recommend looking to see if they have any town records for the town you're researching. Not every town will have their own records, but sometimes you will find church records at the town level or town directories or tax things, like little local municipal things. Then move out to the state level records after that point because they're overwhelming. There will be so many and they're less likely to be relevant. So that's the order I recommend doing it in. If you are not US based, then use the equivalent of that, whatever is smaller than your state jurisdiction or your provincial jurisdiction. So the locations in here will read as the largest location first, typically. I think they might have actually just switched that around, but however it shows up in your search, you will want to make sure that you have the correct jurisdiction. Like in here, it says Minnesota LeSueur as the top entry here. That is the county of LeSueur in Minnesota. The one below that is the town of LeSueur in LeSueur County in the state of Minnesota in the country of the United States. So always make sure that you have the right jurisdiction that you're looking for. So when you open up that page for that county, you will see notes at the top. Pay attention to those because they are often relevant. For instance, here it says that LeSueur County, Minnesota was established in 1853 from Dakota County. So Dakota County is the parent county, meaning that your ancestor may have been living in that spot in, where they were later in LeSueur County before 1853, and they would have then been a resident of Dakota County. They may not have moved, but their county of residence may have changed based on this new county forming in 1853. In that case, you would need to look for records prior to 1853 in the catalog in Dakota County instead. You see what I mean? So pay attention to that. Then look at all the different categories that they have for records. Like directories might be like city directories, land and property records will be very helpful. Naturalization and citizenship. So prior to 1908 in the US, naturalization was handled at the county level. After 1908, it became a federal process. So your best bet for finding naturalization records prior to 1908 will be in the FamilySearch Catalog in these collections. Probate records be very helpful as well. But I opened up the vital records section to take a look here. So we have a lot of different options to choose from. I can see that they have births and deaths as early as 1870, and they have marriages as early as 1854. And just because they have a date range there does not mean that every single year will be accounted for. It's just giving you the range. A lot of times it will say, like 1870 to 1890, comma, 1892, comma, 1895 to 1900 or something like that. But you will find times where certain years are missing even when it looks like a complete range. So I went out and looked at Ancestry's card catalog for LeSueur County to see if they had records that were similar to this, but they did not. They did not have a single record that was specific to that county. So you can find so much more on FamilySearch for the most part. These are the top records that I typically find the best representation of in the FamilySearch Catalog versus on Ancestry or on MyHeritage. That would be those naturalization records at the county level, like I mentioned before, those vital records that predate any state requirement, court records, especially like general court minutes or general things in the court records like so-and-so is fined for larceny, I don't know, something like that, where you won't find that on Ancestry. Land records, far better representation on FamilySearch. Same with estate records, probate, and wills. I want to mention something about that as well. Just because you find a will on Ancestry does not mean that's the extent of the legal records surrounding somebody's death. You can typically find a lot more if you go out to FamilySearch. You can find like the estate settlement, an inventory, the sale of the estate. You can find other probate records, payments, guardianship of children, things like that that you cannot find on Ancestry. So you should always be doing this. So let's walk through how to use these records. I am going to look for death records. So I see that I've got indexes to death records, and I'm going to open up that collection. When I open it up, I can see that at the top is that red line that says Minnesota County deaths are available online. Click here. That means that they are searchable by name. So that will be very helpful and save you the most time. You start by doing that search, and if you don't find what you're looking for, then you come back to this page and you can search in the individual record sets where you see those magnifying glasses down at the bottom. Or you can just look in the images, which is what the camera icon is. It's going to show you the exact images. There won't always be an index to those records, but sometimes there will be, and they won't always be searchable by name. So I am going to look first in that top line there, that red line, for a 1918 death and see what I can find. So it takes me to a search page when I click on that red line. And I am looking for a death record for Henry Cassoon. And on Ancestry, all I had was that Minnesota Death Index. And it just has a little bit of information from that record, but not the original image. Just that death date and his name that has a typo in it. Anytime you find something like that on Ancestry, you should be going out to FamilySearch and trying to find the original record, because you don't know if they've correctly listed the information here, and you don't know how much information is not included in that index. So always try to find the original. So I've got Henry Cassoon here, and I enter his name into that Minnesota County Death search. If you're not sure how to search best, click on that How to Use This Collection button. FamilySearch excels at giving you tutorials to help you use their site. So 2 different records come up when I search for Henry Cassoon, and the top one has more information there and the bottom one has less. That's because the bottom one is a scan of the index page for the county level vital records, the death records, because they do scan those index pages as well. The icons that you will see there, that bracket means that somebody has already connected this record to Henry Cassoon's profile in the FamilySearch collaborative world tree that everyone uses. So I would recommend clicking on that bracket and going out to anybody's profile and seeing what other records are out there already. The camera icon is how you get to the records and open up the record image. And then the little notepad is for the transcription of the record. If you see another little thing like that notepad that has stars on it, then that will take you to full text search, and I'll show you full text search in a little bit. You can see here at the top, that is what that image is for the index, for his mention in the index. And then the one on the right is his entry in the county level death register. He doesn't have a death certificate like we think of that are at the state level. He's just an entry in the register. And if that index just showed you a volume and a page number, then you would go back to that main page on the catalog for the county, and you would find that volume and that page number to find the record. Here is the record for his death. So you remember, Ancestry only had the death date and his name and the county, and that was it, nothing else. This one has so much more information, and this is what Ancestry originally pulled their index from, and they left all of this other stuff off. So his exact date of birth, his occupation, his cause of death, carcinoma of bladder and pleuropneumonia, and then his birthplace of Germany. Page 2, yes, there's a page 2. Has parent name, physician, undertaker, registrar, and township of residence. Physician and undertaker can help you narrow down locations if somebody dies in one place and is buried elsewhere as well. So information is not always absolute fact. You still need to verify it with additional sources, but this is so much more information than what you would have found on Ancestry. So you need to go looking for these records too. So let's say you did that countywide death search and you did not find what you were looking for. Then you would come back to this individual collection and you would click on the magnifying glass, which my little photo here is covering, but it's there on the right. And you would use that to search directly within that location. So we're back on the main page in the catalog for LeSueur County, Minnesota. And I usually end up with like 10 to 20 browser tabs open when I'm looking at this because you keep referring back to the main page all the time. That's why it's not very efficient to use like a tablet or your phone when you are researching on FamilySearch. It's better to have an actual computer. So here I'm going to look at land records. I expanded the section called land and deed records, and I'm going to show you a different way that you can use the catalog here, one that is not searchable by name. So this is a really good way for finding pre-1850 families. Whoever gets land or gives land often can be found to be family, and you can reconstitute those families that predate any census listing for them. So if you open up record set like this, and there is an index, that's where you will start. There will often be a grantee index, and that is the person that is receiving the land, and a separate grantor index for whoever is selling or giving the land. So I'm going to click on that camera icon and I'm going to go look into the index and show you how you would use the index information to find the original full record. So I've opened up that page and it's showing me all of the images in thumbnail form in a grid. You can see there are 601 images at the top there in this record collection. And to open any slides in here, you would double click on the image. So let's open up that cover slide, that number 1. So yes, that is what I was looking for. It was the general index for the grantees for LeSueur County for the deeds. So that's what I want. And then you've got the icons over here, the tools. Plus will zoom in, minus will zoom out. You can use your mouse to scroll, and that grid icon will take you back to the full grid of images. And I don't see any reason you'll ever need that bracket one at the bottom that just takes everything to a full screen view. So these collections will often have multiple items within them. So you'll have to look at the listing in the catalog to see how many items are contained in the collection that you're opening. And each item, and by item I don't mean individual page, it's each section. They use the term item, but it'd be like a section of it will have a start slide and an end slide, and they will always look like this. They will always be black and give the title and have an end slide as well. So if you were looking for the second section or item in this record set, you would scroll all the way down until you found the black slide marked number 2, and you would open that there. So you need to be aware of how many sections and volumes are in this set of images before you open it. In opening a page from the index here, I'll show you how to find the original record based off of this. The top line here will be a great example. It's Eliza Jane Whitney. She received land from Reuben Butter's wife in 1860 at 10 a.m. So on the right side there, you can see that it's in Book E, page 4. So let's go find it. Back in the catalog entry for the county for those land deeds, you can see we just did the index at the top there, but now we know we need volume E. So we look down at the volumes, and you can see that that collection there, the collection 789-8609, contains part of volume C, all of volume D, and all of volume E. So we will be needing the third item in that collection, which is volume E, the third section, the third item number 3 on the black slides. I open up those images with the camera icon. You can see there are 688 images in this record set. Now, We know that that index that was prepared a long time ago, when it says page 4, it's not meaning the same thing as image 4 in here, because there's no way that they're going to get those page numbers from those records to correspond with the images in here. So that won't be helpful to like go up to image number 4 in here in any of these collections. So we know that there were 3 items in this collection we've just opened up. There was the tail end of volume C, which we can see is the continued part of item 1, and then it ends down there at the bottom. And then item 2 starts. So that will be volume D. So we need to scroll down all the way until we find item 3, which will then be volume E, and where we find that original record. I've scrolled all the way down and I find the start of item 3. And I look and there's the spine of the book as well. That's what we're looking for, is volume E. I find page 4 of that book, and there is the record that I'm looking for. It is the indenture for Eliza Jane Whitney from 1860, and that's going to be the full record that will give you all of the information. There will be icons that will help you here. You can print it if you want. You can download a JPEG of it, and there are other tools as well. You can do a source citation, which you can just copy from there and add it to your family tree that you're researching if it's not the FamilySearch family tree. And you can also copy the web address. That will also take you back to this record. There's also the tools icon. You can click on that and it will help you adjust the brightness and the contrast. You can even invert the image colors too, and it can help you to view these records and read them a little better. Here's an example of what it looks like when you invert the colors. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to read when it's like that. There's kind of a common misconception that all genealogy websites have the same scan copy of a record, but they don't. So I'd recommend, if you're on Ancestry and you can't read a record, go see if they have it on FamilySearch, because it might be a little bit less contrast, a little bit less exposed, and a little bit easier to read. I want to show you another tip too. So if you are out on Ancestry and you just have that index that does not have much information, if you see FHL film number as the source, that is Family History Library. That is FamilySearch. You can just copy that number, and then you go out to the FamilySearch Catalog, and instead of searching by place, click on Film Fiche Image Group Number and paste that number into there, and it'll take you straight to the record collection where Ancestry got this index. Anytime you find an index on Ancestry, go look and see if FamilySearch has the original every single time. Here are some of the icons that you will see in the FamilySearch catalog. The one on the left is the best option, where it's got the search magnifying glass and the images. The next one is just the camera. It only has the images. You need to page through them like you're reading a book. If you come across one that has the camera icon but also has an exclamation point, that means that it is a locked image and is only available at a FamilySearch library or affiliate. So yes, that would be, the FamilySearch library in Salt Lake City, but also LDS churches in your town may have a dedicated FamilySearch room, a family history room, and you can access these records on site there through their computers. You can also often access them at some larger libraries and archives as well. So find out if somewhere is a FamilySearch affiliate, and then you can access those records. And those restrictions are not dictated by FamilySearch. They're not deciding you don't have access to it. It's the contract that was signed, and this was stipulated by whomever owns the original records and allowed FamilySearch to scan them. They put a lot of restrictions on them. If you find something that just says availability available, that means it is at the Family Search Library in Salt Lake City, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only copy. So you can use that bottom blue clickable link, view this catalog record in WorldCat for other possible copy locations, and you might be able to find it elsewhere. If you get the little film icon, you're probably not going to be able to access it. It's probably an offsite storage in Salt Lake City. There is another area where you can look for these image records on FamilySearch as well. You can go to the search menu and click on images, and then you can explore more records by location. A lot of times, this is where you'll find records that are in the process of being digitized, and they basically give you access to each image, each page, immediately after it's scanned. So before the records are finalized, put in a collection, and added to the catalog, you can access a lot of them here. As an example here, I typed in LeSueur County, Minnesota again, and they have 133 image sets out here in images, not individual images, but image sets. So maybe you look at one of these and they are only digitized through the letter M, and then you can come back in a couple days and you'll find that they're up through the letter S. It will be added to, and it's kind of the quickest way to get access to new records because they have about 300 film crews around the world digitizing records at all times. When you are looking for records abroad, I recommend doing basically the same thing. You would start at what's kind of like the county level or equivalent that you can find for that location. Now, the hardest part will be finding a location of origin because a lot of times your ancestor will come from a place that maybe no longer exists. So, for instance, Posen, Prussia. Let's say you have some German ancestors from Posen, Prussia. That is now Poznan, Poland. So those German records can be found under Poland now. So think about borders, figure out where these records would be because the jurisdictions may change, the name may change, but those records are likely where they've always been. A lot of times, if you try typing in like Posen, Prussia, it'll autocorrect and give you the current location of where you would look. So use the FamilySearch Wiki to find any name changes. Typically, when you're researching in another country, your best asset in the FamilySearch catalog will be church records. That's often the best thing I'm able to find out there that pertains to my research. You'll find a lot of other categories too, like immigration information, civil registration, Jewish history. There will be a lot of different things that will always vary on time and place. So most of the time you will want to go to like the state level or county level or its equivalent to find the best records. But sometimes those church records will be down at town or parish level. I often look at Google Maps to see if there was a church in the town where they lived, because perhaps their closest church was the next town over. Also, from the search menu on FamilySearch, you'll want to look at places. So FamilySearch places, they're going to show you the years that something was named a particular name. Like with Posen, it's showing here that it's a province from 1871 to 1920. Then it would also tell me that it's Poznan, Poland now. It's going to show you different names and different languages for towns, and it'll really help you figure out where those records will be. It will also give you a summary of the history of the area, and it'll show you on a modern map where Posen would have been to help you figure out other neighboring communities where you should maybe be looking for records as well. Full text search is absolutely revolutionary. FamilySearch released it in 2024, and it is OCR software, optical character recognition. So instead of a person or a program needing to go through all of a record set and index it so it's searchable by name, this can actually search directly on the record image for any text you're looking for. So it does not need to be transcribed. It's like a Google search directly across all images. So this is a fantastic thing that has completely revolutionized genealogy research. Main full text search page looks like this, and there will be little tips and tricks on there to help you get a better feel for how to use it. I also wrote, I think it's a 73-page research guide on how to use it that's on my website as well. So you've got your keyword section and your name section. Those are pretty interchangeable. If you put a name in keyword, it responds the same way as if you put a keyword in name. Like it's just two different fields. It kind of just gives you the option to search on two different words that you want it to look for. I usually just search wide open and then narrow down the filters for place and year after that. I don't want to limit myself too much when I first search. You can also find a collection specifically if you just want to see what they have. You can browse all collections, or you can start typing for a place and it'll show what they have. So all of their unindexed records will eventually be added to full text search. So it's not perfect. It will make mistakes. It will miss things. You will still need a human eye on it. But eventually, those records that are harder to find, like those land deeds in the image only records, will show up in here. They have to train it on each language and individually add those record collections to full text search. So this is an example of why you would want to use full text search. Let's say that your ancestor was born in North Carolina, but you only know them living in Missouri, and you have no idea where in North Carolina they would be. In the olden days, you would have needed to go into every single county and look in those court records at the county level or the land records to try to find your person. Just a complete needle in a haystack. But now you can just search for somebody's name within that state and often find which county they were from. I'm going to show you an example here with the name Owen Breedlove, and I put it in quotes because I want it to return results where both Owen and Breedlove show up consecutively. We want it to show us that exact phrase in the records, not, Owen at the top of the page and Breedlove at the bottom. So let's say I knew he was from Virginia, but I had no idea where in Virginia he could have been from. So I just search wide open with his name in quote. And only 3 records come up in Virginia. 2 of them are in Russell County, Virginia, and 1 is in Shenandoah. So that gives me counties to search. It's not every single county in Virginia, completely unknown location. It's giving me targeted areas to research. So before, when you were searching, you could have gone out to the will book for Russell County, Virginia, and you would have seen if anything was for like Owen Breedlove, because his name would be in the index. But now with full text search, we can see his name show up even in like estate sales. Like here, he bought a pot hanger from somebody in 1846. Before, you could only look in an index for the subject of the record, not for every name included. So this complete game changer. Moving on to the second section, we're going to talk about working with DNA in your family history research, because you can learn to triangulate relationships, find biological parents for somebody with unknown parentage. You can use cousin matches to analyze relationships and figure out different ancestors in lieu of a paper trail where the trail or the paper records leave off and you're not able to find those connections. DNA can help you figure it out. These are the main 3 types of DNA tests that are for consumers. The most common one is autosomal DNA. That's what most people say is their DNA test that they've taken. That's the one like Ancestry, 23andMe. That's what's going to give you the ethnicity results for your background. It's going to help you find those cousin matches, but it is limited in its reach. It can only go back about 200 years. Y DNA, only males can test because it's only tracing their Y chromosome, but it can go back about 1,000 years because that is passed down from generation to generation, virtually unchanged. It's hard to work with, it's very expensive, but it's one way where you can skip the lack of paper records and then rejoin your family line back like 200 years before where your paper records leave off. It's going to give you those far matches, those very distant matches. It's not going to be as useful for finding like somebody's biological father. You're going to want this only for like origins of surnames, figuring out what country somebody came from, and joining a surname study where an admin will work to put you into different buckets based on your most recent common ancestor. So you can start to figure out origins of families way far back. mtDNA is mitochondrial DNA. Anyone can test, but it only traces your direct maternal line, and I've not found it particularly useful for genealogy. These are the main DNA testing companies. These are all for autosomal DNA. Ancestry is the largest database and the most helpful one for working with your family tree. 23andMe recently went bankrupt, and now they are owned by a nonprofit, which was headed by the founder of 23andMe, but that's best for health results, not really for family tree. MyHeritage no longer allows uploads of raw DNA into their database. You need to test with them to be in their database at all. And they've just started testing the full human genome. So it's a much more extensive test than it used to be. Not expensive, but extensive. Family Tree DNA and Living DNA are smaller databases, and they will allow you to upload your raw DNA into their databases for free. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to work with your Ancestry DNA. I recommend that you should test there, especially if your tree is housed there. MyHeritage is okay. It's not my favorite one, but if that's where your tree is, perhaps you'd rather test at MyHeritage. If you're trying to find a lot of European relatives, then perhaps MyHeritage is a better test for you. It was more widely marketed across Europe than Ancestry was. But if you are like North America based or Australian based, I think Ancestry is probably the one with the best matches for you. So I always recommend that you link your DNA results to your tree so that you can fully use all of the DNA tools that they have. This is one reason that I recommend only building one tree, not a separate maternal and paternal tree for yourself, because you can only attach your DNA results to one tree at a time. It used to be that all of the DNA tools were available to you simply for taking a test, an Ancestry DNA test. It was included in your cost, but they have now put a lot of the features behind a paywall. So if you have an Ancestry membership for just the general genealogy records, these things will be included on the right. Or you can get an Ancestry DNA Plus membership to only work with DNA and not have access to all of the genealogy records. So they have put through lines behind a paywall. And that's a way where you can figure out common ancestors with your DNA matches. They put like nearly all of your shared matches behind this paywall so that you need to either subscribe to Ancestry or their DNA Plus subscription to really use your DNA results. And that Ancestry DNA Plus membership is currently about $60 per year. There are also additional DNA tools that are only available through the Ancestry Pro Tools add-on subscription, which is an additional $10 per month. One of the Pro Tools add-ons that's really helpful is shared matches. So if you are looking at a DNA match, for instance, here it shows my dad. Here's me, and it shows this is my dad. Now he's adopted. So I see that one of my DNA matches relates to him as a half sibling, or that he is their uncle. So that helps you a lot to figure out how your DNA matches are related to each other. Before, you would have had, maybe 5 different people listed as possible first cousins in your DNA matches. Now you can see which of them are cousins to each other and which of them are siblings to each other. So that is extremely helpful if you are trying to figure out how people are related, and especially like in situations of unknown parentage. That will only be available in Pro Tools, and it would be worth your while if that's what you're trying to figure out. It can take years to learn to work with DNA well, so I recommend you try to educate yourself a little bit ahead of time. Learn to work with it, learn what it means. I recommend going to Ancestry's support page and then learning about your DNA results and what they mean. I also recommend Diane Southard of Your DNA Guide. She does loads of free webinars. She has lots of things on YouTube and a lot of free resources on her website as well that explain how to work with your autosomal DNA. Some other people that you should look into would be Dr. Leah Larkin. She is the DNA geek online and has a blog and website. And Dr. Blaine Bettinger, he has some books out as well and does a lot of other talks. Those are going to be some of your top people in the industry to pay attention to learn how to use this well. Here's an example of what ethnicity estimates look like. Now, a lot of people say that they don't trust these DNA tests because a while ago they were 20% Irish and now they don't have any Irish at all. It's all gone. That's just these companies further refining their reference panels and the results and making them more precise. So ethnicity estimates will change as the technology gets better and they have more information at their disposal. But it's not like your DNA changes and citizenship doesn't change. Ethnicity and citizenship are different. If your family was from Croatia and you have a lot of Italian ethnicity, that makes sense. Those countries are neighbors, not the same as citizenship. Ancestry continues to give you better tools to make things a lot faster to work with. They released about a year or 2 ago something that automatically will sort your DNA matches based on your parent. So you can see which is paternal and which is maternal. So that helps immensely. That used to be something that people would spend hours and months doing. So you can now easily see that. They will continue to add new features to DNA, but they will always be released under Pro Tools. Just a few things to consider with working with your DNA as well. You are only guaranteed to share DNA with a second cousin or closer. So if you think somebody is a third cousin and you don't share any DNA with them, don't assume that you're not related to them. That's just part of the limitation of autosomal DNA. And DNA inheritance is random. You get 50% of your DNA from each parent, but beyond that, subsequent generations, it's not exactly 50% from each of those ancestors. And that's also why maybe you're 20% Irish and your sister is 40% Irish. You don't know which percentage of DNA you're getting from your parent. You don't know which ethnicity is going to come through. And, farther back in time, only some of your ancestors will have contributed to your DNA. So that's why you shouldn't put too much stock in those people that claim that they've used Ancestry DNA to prove that they're related to Pocahontas or Charlemagne. It just does not go back that far. It can only go back about 200 years. And there is a range of centimorgans, which is CMs are the measurement for DNA for each type of relationship. It's not going to automatically be an exact defined amount. It is going to vary because of this unpredictability of DNA inheritance. If you are trying to research somebody on a far back line, you're going to test the closest living person to that individual. If you are interested in your grandfather's family, don't test yourself. Test your father. Whoever is closest, an uncle, anybody that's closest to the line you're trying to look at, because they would have twice as much DNA each generation closer. It'll be twice as easy to work with. Keep in mind that if you have some lower matches from 15 centimorgans or lower, don't be too confident in those relationships because it could be just endogamy. So endogamy is when different populations have lived together for a long time and been relatively isolated, and more and more similar DNA happens just because so many generations have been together for so long, like Irish populations, Jewish populations, French Canadians. Pedigree collapse can show up in your family as well. That's when you are related to ancestors in multiple ways. Like in my family, my second great grandparents were second cousins. So at that point, the family tree turns into a wreath, and it's very common to find. So I would say that you should be confident in being able to prove third great grandparents or closer through DNA. A lot of times you will find surprise relatives that pop up, or maybe you're somebody's surprise relative. If you find something like that, document it right away. Take a screenshot, because a lot of times people will see something that doesn't fit with their family and they think it's a scandal and they will delete their DNA results. I'm going to walk you through how to label your DNA matches on Ancestry. And if you are looking for unknown family lines, you would do it pretty similarly to what I'll show you by just labeling your groups as just different groups, like group 1, 2, 3, and 4, instead of by known family surnames like I'll show you. Recommend that you label every single match because it's very tedious up front, but it will save you a lot of time in the long run. There are new tools that are at Ancestry too, like DNA clusters, that can help you with things like this so that maybe you don't need to do this, but this is kind of the old school method that a lot of genetic genealogists do. So you're going to first create custom groups in your DNA matches. You can add that plus, and you can create these matches or these groups. So you're going to start by doing 4 different groups, one for each of your grandparents, and you should label them with the names of your great grandparents, both the maiden name and the name that your grandparent was born with. And that will help you figure out how people are related through easy color coding. Make sure that your DNA is linked to your tree in your settings as well. And then learn about through lines also. So through lines is going to give you suggestions for ancestors based on the trees of your DNA matches. It's not saying this is definitely right. It's not looking at some big master tree of DNA matches and saying this is definitely your right ancestor. It's a clue. It's just saying you definitely share DNA with this person and they have this ancestor in their tree. Perhaps you want to add it to yours. So it's not any magic window into the past. It's just looking at somebody else's work and then suggesting that you copy it, which can be right and also can be wrong. I'm going to start labeling by going to viewing DNA matches by ancestor. And then I'm going to find the closest relationship to me that has DNA matches that are not my immediate family. So for me, I have to go back to my great grandfather who was born in 1865 to find somebody that's not my immediate family. So I see my mom's cousin Ray, and I am going to label him and add him to one of those DNA groups that I created, the color-coded matches. So I add him to the McFarlane white, the dark pink line, because that's how we are related. I also connect him with his DNA to his profile in my tree. I have him in my tree and I click that little green button there and I link this to the tree. And then when you're in your tree, you can use your tree settings to have it show the DNA matches or not show them. And then it's easy because you can just click straight between the DNA and your tree. Now that I have Cousin Ray in that group, I'm going to click on shared matches that I share with Cousin Ray. And I'm going to use that plus sign and I am going to add that same dot to every genealogy or every DNA match in here. If you have zillions of matches, you can draw the line at a certain threshold of centimorgans, like 20 centimorgans or 15, and only do the matches up to that point. If you are related to people in multiple ways, you will have multiple dots. Your siblings, if they've tested, they will have 4 dots. So this is just going to be an easy way for you to see at a quick glance how you are related to people. That'll be very easy for sorting new matches as new ones show up in your DNA matches as well. Then if you can, do the same thing for all 8 great-grandparent lines as well. Then it's not going to be overwhelming and your DNA will start to make sense. Figure out how these matches are related to you. It can be helpful to find distant, like 3rd or 4th cousins that maybe have photos that you can connect with that you would have not found any other way except for through DNA. You can also see these trees that your DNA matches have created. It's going to show you in green common surnames that you have in your tree that they also have. That's not going to tell you that's definitely how you're related through DNA. It's just doing a search on surnames and comparing and matching some that are in common, not saying that's definitely the line you're related through. But those color-coded matches will be how it's going to show you how you're related or through DNA clusters. When you look at your DNA matches, you can also kind of figure out how you're related to them based on shared ethnicity estimates as well. Like if I am looking at a Norwegian line, I've got somebody that matches me and they're very Norwegian and I'm very Norwegian, then it's probably from my multiple lines that came from Norway. Note that the relationship that Ancestry tells you for your DNA matches, it's just based on an algorithm. It's saying this is the most probable relationship based on the age of the person that you're matching with and your age. It's just giving you a general idea of how they could be related. It's not saying that's definitely how. You can click on it and it's going to tell you the different probabilities of the relationships that you could have with that individual. The thing you need to focus more than on the relationship it's suggesting is the number of centimorgans that you share with that person, because you can use that in other tools that I'm going to show you as well. You can take that 331 centimorgans from Ancestry and you can go out to the free website DNA Painter and you can enter that number. And it's going to jump out at you on their chart of the different relationships you might have with an individual. And it's also going to give you helpful percentages of probability as well. Now, I like DNA Painter. It's free to use because they are using real life proven relationship results to come up with their numbers, not just an algorithm. When you're looking at those relationships, like this is first cousin once removed, it's giving you an average number of centimorgans for that relationship of 433. But then it's also giving you a range of 102 to 980. And it can give you a histogram that's going to show you where the most people fall in that range as well. So If you think someone is a first cousin once removed and you share 1,200 centimorgans with them, that is not the relationship that you share. That is, unless there's, a lot of endogamy and it's artificially inflated, but or a pedigree collapse. But in a general typical relationship, that would be a closer relationship than that because it exceeds the amount of centimorgans you can have in that relationship range. Another free site that you can use for DNA is GEDmatch. They have a lot of free tools. They are not a testing company. You would upload your raw DNA from another DNA test, and you could then match with somebody that had tested on a different platform and happened to add their DNA here. Another new DNA tool you can check out that was released in 2024 is Banyan DNA, and that's by Dr. Leah Larkin, the DNA geek online. And this is going to help you work with more complicated family trees and complicated DNA matches, like if you do have endogamy or pedigree collapse in your family. She has both a free plan and a paid plan for her tools. If you are looking for unknown biological parents in a line, you can also assign label groups with dots and sort people out by relationship that way. A lot of times you can create a private DNA only family tree to add these relationships together as you try to figure them out. You can have floating lines in your family tree and attach those DNA matches to that tree as you work out how the relationships work. If you have an unknown DNA match or you're trying to figure out unknown parents, use people's usernames to try to figure out who they are and how they're related. Or use their trees. Like if you have the living person marked as private and they're your DNA match in their tree. If you see like their grandparent who is recently deceased, go out and try to find an obituary for that person. It might help you figure out the identity of your DNA match, and then you can start to figure out the family dynamics that way. In our final section, we're going to talk about some other repositories that you can look for in your research and utilize. This first one is the Bureau of Land Management site. It's going to have the General Land Office records. It's going to show the first acquisition of land from the federal government, not the entire history of land. So this will be helpful if you had pioneer ancestors that came out west or homesteaders or something like that. And this will only apply to federal land states. If you're not sure if that applies to your family, just Google federal land states and figure out if that falls into the right time frame for your family. I'm going to walk you through an example of finding the land records, and I'm going to find the records for my great-grandfather, John Jensen. Now, I knew that he was married around like 1896 or so, and that he was already farming and homesteading by 1900. So I first looked up his 1900 U.S. federal census to see the township where he was living. So it was Goose Lake in Charles Mix County, South Dakota. So I go on the main page of the Bureau of Land Management site, and I put in the state and the county, and then his name, and then I hit search. And two patent results come up here. We've got one from 1902 and one from 1904. I'm going to click on that first one. It shows that the patent was issued to him on July 3rd, 1902 for 40 acres in Section 23, and that it was from the office in Mitchell, South Dakota. So you can click on that tab for the patent image. And then it pulls up the full screen original document. And you can also click on the related documents tab, which will show you the original survey information a lot of the time for that parcel of land. And keep in mind that when you find something like this, like a homestead record, there is also a land entry document that can be much longer and much more detailed at the National Archives. And I recommend that you order those documents from civilwarrecords.com rather than from the National Archives because it will be cheaper to order from Brian and it'll be a faster turnaround and better quality scans. I then look at the other document for 1904. It's the same range and township, but a different section. So now I have two locations that I want to try to find on a plat map. And these bits of land were acquired through two different land acts. And there's a link in the handout too for that timeline of public land acts. If you have not contacted me yet for the handout, please do so, and I will send it to you. So the Homestead Act of 1862 required that you were a citizen. So if you see an immigrant ancestor who filed under the 1862 Homestead Act, you also need to look for their naturalization paperwork. And on that main search page, you can click the tabs there, the boxes for map, and it's going to show you where that land is located on a modern map with current street names and highway names. Now let's look for plat maps. The best site for finding them would be on Historic MapWorks, and I like to just hit browse and then drill down through the map to find the locations I'm looking for. So I find Charles Mix County, and they have lots of different plat maps. I'm going to open 1906 because that is closest to those land dates that I found. And I'm going to open up the Goose Lake Township map. I look at section 19, and there he is. That little box with the R means residence. So that's how you can see on the land where the home was, because that was part of the deal. You had to have a residence on it there. So pay attention to the names around there. See if there's any other family members. And if your family member is on the edge of another township, like this one, you're going to want to see who their neighbors are in the adjoining township as well, because they might be family. Check the neighbors of your ancestor as well. I noticed that John Gleason was next door to my great-grandfather, and so I started looking in old photos, and I found two that were neighbored or labeled as John Gleason. So now I have some context for who he was. He was their neighbor, not necessarily a relative. Then I went looking for that other section that I had for him, the other land for section 23 and 24. I open up the plat map for that, and he is incorrectly labeled on here as James A. Jensen. And that's just going to be a mistake of the map maker. I have the original documents that I found on the Bureau of Land Management showing me that it truly was his land and not James. Now this technique is going to work best in the Midwest for most of the Homestead Act land. Now I'm going to plot it out on Google Maps. I just entered the township name. I just type in Goose Lake Township, Charles Mix County, South Dakota, and it comes right up with the same boundaries that existed in 1906 that I was looking at. That's still the same census enumeration district, so Google Maps knows how to outline it. And since we're in the Midwest here, everything's a nice little 1 mile square. So I was just able to count up and over and see exactly where his land was. Then I switched to satellite view to see if there are any structures on the property. And I zoom in and I see this footprint really matches the views I have of his house from 1918. Even if a house or other structures are gone, you can sometimes still see the footprint of the foundation. Then check for Google Street View, see if it exists for that street. Sometimes you can drive virtually right by your ancestors' homestead from 150 years ago and just go through like you're going by it in real time because of Google Street View. After you've exhausted the big genealogy record repository sites, go look at state archives. That'll be your next best bet. They all have different things. There's no way to predict exactly which one has or guarantee something that's the same across all state archives. But on the Minnesota site, for example here, they have a free people search that is going to pull up the state requirements for birth and death records. And then you can order a non-certified copy straight from their website for $9. So it's awesome. They have a lot of digital newspapers available for free, especially like Norwegian, Swedish, and German language newspapers. And lots of finding aids showing you exactly what they have on site. So check out the state you're researching and see exactly what they have. Many libraries will have a genealogy page on their site or a local history page with, very specific, one-of-a-kind resources you can find there. I also recommend looking into smaller county or state historical societies or very niche ones on Facebook. They have loads and loads of these groups that have pages where you can ask a question or see different resources that are saved in their files area that you can download and use. Another one to try is the US GenWeb project. It's from 1996, and a lot of the website looks like 1996, but it's a place where you can just find a potpourri of documents and resources. Some websites for a county will have like an inventory of all the cemeteries in the county that was created in 1930 and uploaded to the site, or transcribed obituaries from newspapers that aren't online. You just never know what you're going to find. The FamilySearch Wiki is something you absolutely need to be using for any area you're researching. The best way to find things on here is just by Googling, not really by going straight to the site. So I just Google FamilySearch Wiki US military records or FamilySearch Wiki Hennepin County, Minnesota, and it'll take you straight to the page. Here's an example of a FamilySearch Wiki page. It's going to show you information about the courthouse. It's going to show you the known beginning dates for major records, also any record loss. It's going to show you when the county was organized. And it's going to show you all these different categories for types of records, and it'll link you straight to them, whether they're on subscription sites or on free sites. Be sure to follow along on social media for daily genealogy tip videos and other breaking news. And check out my research guides on my website as well.